Could you tell me, just give me some good advice on how you would handle malware?
I'd say some good advice on how to look for malware is not to look for what you think malware is, but focus on and look for what malware does. So think of it in terms of malware remediation, malware control, malware protection is not synonymous to just asset inventory and software distribution. What is it doing to you that's bad when you don't even know it's there?
That's a good tip. Now, Aviv, I want you to do the exact opposite. I want you to give me some bad advice on dealing with malware.
So I think just unplugging the internet for most of the laptops in the organization would probably be a or a bad solution to how to handle running malware.
Just unplugging everything?
Yeah.
All right, Tom, do you have something worse than that?
I've probably done many things worse than that, but thankfully it's probably been some time. But I would say never allow yourself to think, let alone utter the phrase, well, it's probably not a big deal, so I'm not so worried about it before I speak up. So the idea of not subscribing to the reality that threat and vulnerability management events are more like milk than wine in terms of aging and the benefit of aging, not doing that is worse.
Well,
Get ready. It's Super Cyber Friday.
that was some good advice, bad advice, and worse advice. Thank you, Tom and Aviv. More from them in just a moment, but let me introduce our topic for today. It is hacking malware. I can't believe we've gone so many years, and this is our first episode talking about malware. It's an hour of critical thinking about understanding, preventing, and dissecting malicious software. All right, our guest, who you just saw there a moments ago, is Tom Dowdy, who's the VP CISO over at Prudential Financial, and also Aviv Grafi, who is the CTO and founder of Votiro. Votiro, hey, guess what? They're our sponsor for today's CISO series. Thank you so much, or for Super Cyber Friday specifically. Thank you so much for sponsoring. Now, for those of you who have been here many times, you know this. 7 different ways you can participate. The chat room, submit your worst way to deal with malware. So I'm sure there's a lot of bad ways to deal with malware. I want to hear your worst way to deal with it. But how do we make it 10% better? How do we deal with this malware problem and make it just a little bit better? You can vote in our polls. You can join us on video at any time by just typing "Bring Me On," ask a question, make a comment. Ask a question. You'll see at the bottom of the screen, there's a text that says "Ask a question." If you click on that, it's actually a button. You can actually ask a question. And you can also vote for your favorite question at any time. So please ask lots of questions about malware. We want to hear it from you. All right. Today's schedule: good advice, bad advice, worse advice. You're going to get your bad ideas. You're going to get your good ideas in. We're going to play the public interest. We'll put our poll live of worst ways to deal with malware. Please vote on our poll. And then we'll play the Department of Yes. Our poll will go live and our for the 10% better tips. And we'll have our 2 top worst idea contenders face off. Those will be the ones we address in the Department of Yes game. Then we'll have our last questions and final advice. And then we will do our meetup at the end of the show. Let me just say this. If you've never been to our meetup, yes, you are missing out. So stick around for that. It's a lot of fun. I highly, highly recommend it. Next Friday, our topic, or actually not next Friday, it's 2 weeks from Friday. So the next Friday we do this show, which will be on June 3rd. We're not doing a show next week because it's a long weekend here in the U.S., but in 2 weeks, June 3rd, our topic will be hacking the attack surface, an hour of critical thinking about losing top-down control of data and users. Click on the link at the bottom of the screen. You can do that at any time during this show, and it will not take you out of this discussion. You can register for it somewhere else while you're still in this chat as well. All right. With that being said, let's get back to our discussion at hand. Oh, by the way, I should mention you want to register for our discussion, because if you do it by the 5 p.m. the Tuesday before, which I believe is the 30th, you will automatically be entered to win one of the awesome CISO series jackets. All right. Let's get to our topic at hand. And I will ask you first, Aviv, where are we? Because on the malware issue, malware has been around for decades, and the way we've been handling it has been different over all these years. So just give me sort of the status of where we are, you believe, currently with dealing with malware.
Great. So I think that one of the problems that you traditionally saw over the last probably 20 years that we keep doing the same thing we're trying to classify whether a behavior or a document or a file is actually looks like a malware. Now it started from the back from the days of the antiviruses. Back then, we moved through sandboxing a decade ago. Then we moved through machine learning and AI kind of technology, but we're still on the same place where we're staring at a document or a file or a behavior and saying whether this is bad or not, and let's try to guess it. So I think this is the problem we're still facing these days, and one of the approaches need to be changed.
And then, Tom, what's your perspective on how we're dealing with malware today?
Yeah, I think, Aviv, the way you outlined it in terms of whether you call it tool sets or EDM tool sets, et cetera, largely doing things the way they've done for some time. I think where a little bit of a corner may have been turned is really leaning into the idea of threat hunting and behavioral analysis to complement that. You've got to do both. Everything that's old is still old in terms of what can indicate signatures, IOC detection, et cetera. But really operating from that perspective of assume that bad is happening to you, know what bad looks like, but more importantly, knowing how to go and find it, not only with tools, but with humans who are skilled to do that. I think that's helped get past some optimism bias where people look for reasons coming out of tool sets to tell them why they're probably okay.
Hey, there's just a really good, and I think we should address this, a really good kind of 101 question that came in from Valerie Apperson. And can we just address this really basic concept? Because I think we in security just have this assumption like malware is discovered, but we don't understand intrinsically how it's going. And she asked, how do you find malware traditionally? How do you know it's actually there? Are there scanners? I mean, what is the way we actually find it in a traditional way? I'll start with you, Aviv.
Yeah, so I think, as I mentioned, we do see a lot of tools that try to detect a malicious behavior, something that is abnormal. This is some of the tools that we're doing, and some of it is a kind of almost post-mortem. I think that when we see something already in the network, say, oh, it's already here, as Tom mentioned. So I think most of the solutions we have today is to try to detect after the installation, post-installation.
Tom, are you finding that problem? I mean, basic scanners are out there and they've been around for a while, but obviously things are getting through. What are you blocking? What are you not blocking? And there's a lot of the stuff after the fact.
I think it's true that the scanners still play a role. And, the idea of, in the chat, I said, yeah, signatures very 101, of course, goes without saying. But I think when you match what's your footprint today in terms of where business flows and operations are happening, it's really at that level of think about where malware is manifesting itself. It's not necessarily at the host level in the way we've traditionally looked at it. It's not even necessarily at the file level and is it good or bad. You still have to look for those things. Low-hanging fruit, though. If you think about it in terms of what are the flows between your microservices that you might not even know are running in your environment, what does your architecture look like in terms of an external mosaic of SaaS, of microservices, of code that you don't control? You got to look at the flows and behaviors and anomalies without even pre-concluding that they could be due to malware or code snippets or secrets that you wish weren't there. It's what's happening, not just what's there.
And how do you, Tom, Gianna Whitfer is asking this question, what if it's new malware? And what's the difference between, and this may be an ignorant question asked, but what is the difference between new malware and a 0-day? Is there a difference between the two? Like malware,
well, I think there's a difference.
Signatures haven't been sort of seen.
Yeah, it to a certain degree, it could be a distinction without a difference or a difference without a distinction, depending upon the way you want to look at it. There's certainly the situation of new malware where it's really just newly created and really just the behaviors are starting to manifest themselves. Or it could be it's been around for some time, but it's not been discovered on a widespread basis or understood what bad looks like on that distributed basis. On one hand, classifying something as a 0-day and getting your TTPs and getting your IOCs, well, that certainly helps. It also starts the clock against then you better be pretty quick to understand what the behaviors look like, have wherewithal to see those behaviors and where the applicability is in your environment. But you have to be doing that all the time, not waiting for something to be classified as a 0-day. So that's where I see the distinction without a difference. If you're doing the latter all the time, then you're probably better positioned to react quickly to a 0-day as opposed to figuring out those visibility components in the heat of the moment.
Aviv, same question to you.
Yeah, I do want to comment on what Thomas mentioned. Can you hear me, guys?
Sure, fine. You're good.
Yeah. So I do want to comment on what Thomas just mentioned. I think that 0 day is just a matter of time until we get a grip of what we need to update or detect, and that's the number one problem we've seen when we saw customers saying, "Look, I have the latest signatures, but I'm still getting hit," and we understood that the point where this model is failing over and over is on the delivery phase, where significant number of attacks starting from delivering content, a document, something that someone need to open, to click, to interact with. And this is, as Tom mentioned, this is actually abusing the human factor. And that's why we're saying, look, there is a different way to handle with those 0 days, with those something unknowns, but just saying, let's trust what we know and keep outside what we don't know or not familiar with. As some of those approaches, you can call it zero trust for content. You can call it in many ways, but that's the same thing. Prevention of something that is you're unfamiliar with or it's unknown, and it might be 0 day.
Okay, so let me move on to the next question here. And by the way, if you have not registered for next week, or I'm sorry, in 2 weeks, Hacking the Attack Surface, please click that button on the bottom. So we talk about the malware. What are the ways malware is actually getting through, and do we actually understand the path that it is coming through, Tom?
If there were a path and call it the path, I'd be pretty happy, because that would be a lot easier to try to understand and cover down on. So you could generalize, and it's de rigueur to talk about the human factor, and that's absolutely true. But if I think about the how it manifests itself, it also, to me, it's a discussion of where are organizations potentially blind, and why is that so? So Aviv was brushing up against this. But the idea of, hey, whether it's behavioral analysis, whether it's really true net flow analysis, whether it's IOCs and applicability and applying your threat intelligence in a very granular fashion, where do you think you need to apply it? So it sounds rudimentary, but it's really not, especially in again, microservices and externally services and SaaS-enabled environment. What is your true asset inventory and CMDB resolution look like? And I think there are a lot of organizations that think they're pretty good at it and are not really good at it, or they once were good at it. Once it was code they wrote or code they procured, and it's running in their premises or in appliances or pizza boxes in their data center. And that doesn't exist as the primary core of our infrastructure anymore. So how many people, as an example, got an effort stood up around a log4j set of updates and really knew where those binaries were running in compiled code, in services that they were not running in open source componentry that were wrapped in supply chain pieces of software? Probably not as many people would like to admit that it took them a while to figure that out. But in summary, I think how it manifests itself is it hits you in places where you didn't even know you had assets or services running, because CMDB is lacking today.
Mm-hmm. What about going to you, like understanding how malware is getting through, Aviv? Like, what's your understanding?
So my understanding is that the attack surface and the pipes where malware is delivered today has got much broader, especially on the last 2 or 3 years. We see a lot of organizations moving their applications to the cloud. Then they're interacting with the clients online using client-facing portals. They're allowing them to upload documents, to upload content. In fact, what used to be mostly email and maybe a URL in browsing, it's now way broader. As Tom mentioned, you might running a third-party code in your Elastic or Kubernetes environment. You might be having a third party that developed some client-facing portal for you, and eventually all that content can need to be consumed by the organization. So someone need to open those malicious documents, malicious data, and it's got to a way tougher problem.
By the way, a couple of good 10% better tips came in here. One with Brian Colt, who said, foster a SOC staff which is personable and approachable to facilitate the see something, say something. Tom, are you aggressive about getting people to report stuff when they see it?
Yeah, we try to be, and part of the way you do that is, and it manifests itself over years, is don't make it a negative event if it turns out to be nothing.
Hmm.
We want that to happen. People report events every day, but that's on a micro sense. In a macro sense, I think about developers or product or service owners when they think there might be a problem in their own code. Let's say that you have a burgeoning DevOps pipeline and the guardrails didn't quite fit, and DevSecOps represents either a bump or something didn't quite click. That could cause delay to what's important to them, could cause delay in their delivery of their business functionality. But having that be, if not rewarded, at least encouraged at the time that they actually do it, is the best thing you can do to encourage it, as opposed to, well, you just dropped a problem on my lap. I would rather have you drop a problem on our lap than have a problem hit us in the side of the head weeks later.
By the way, I think we need a lot more bad ideas. I don't think we have enough of them. So please get your bad ideas in. And by the way,
It's time to play a brand new game.
now those of you who've been here have known, actually, we've been playing this game for the past 2 months, so it's actually not that brand new. But we are getting around to actually creating a great new sound effect for all of you. But it is a game that you have all enjoyed, the public interest. And I have done one thing new for today's game. I always have them as A, B, A, B, A, B. I've made it A through H. So you'll see it'll say A, B, and then C, D, because you all answer, but you're answering A, B each one. And I don't know, and since you're all on a slight delay, everyone in the chat room is like on a 20, 30-second delay. I don't know which one the heck you're referring to. So with that being said, they're all different letters, you'll see, as we play the game. So you can put down a different letter so we'll know which one you're answering. And please tally up your scores. I'm interested to know who gets all 4 correct. All right, here's how it's played. It's pretty simple. Most average monthly search queries for the word malware or phishing. Aviv, what do you think it is?
I would bet to be phishing.
B, phishing. What do you think, Tom?
I concur. I'm going to go with B, fishing.
You are both incorrect. Actually, I was surprised too. Malware is actually a little bit more popular. Just because we hear so much about phishing in the press, I would say. All right. Number 2. Now, you see it's C and D audience, so you can answer C or D. Which gets more search queries, the word macros or programs? What do you think, Tom?
I'm going to say macros. That might be hopeful, but macros.
Macros, what do you think, Aviv?
I would say in the security context, probably macros, yeah.
All right. Well, you remember everybody gets to search on Google, but guess what? You're both correct. In fact, a whopping difference. I couldn't believe that. A lot of people thought D, but unfortunately not D. It was actually C, macros. All right, here we go. Next one. Which gets more, clean the hard drive or just clean hard drive or delete files? What do you think, Aviv?
I would go with clean hard drive.
All right, and Tom?
Well, I'm a cynic, and I think people thinking in terms of behaviors that I would be cynical about, I would say delete files, F.
And guess what? Tom wins on that one. Delete files. I'm sorry, I'm not keeping score. How many do you have, Tom? I think
I'm
you have
2 for 3 so far.
2 for 3, and
Yeah.
I think you're. What are you? 1 for 3? What are you? Or 0? Hold. What are you, Aviv?
No, I have a 1, I think.
You've got 1. All right. Let's
Yeah.
see who's going to get this last one. Possibly both. Which one's Cyber 9/11 or Cyber Pearl Harbor? What do you think is searched more often? Aviv.
Yeah, I would go with the Cyber 9/11.
Cyber 9/11 and Tom?
Now, Cyber Pearl Harbor, we're differentiated.
Well, guess what? Tom wins on this one. It is
Ooh.
Cyber Pearl Harbor. All right. Anyone get all 4? This was a tough one. I think this was a plenty difficult one. Anyone get all 4? We'll find out in just a second because there are a few seconds behind us. All right. Good job, both of you. So I think, hold it, wait. You got 3 for 4 and you got 1 out of 4, right, Aviv? All right.
Right.
It's not a mark against you, but that's how well you know what people are searching all the time, which is not an easy game. It's not easy. All right. A little good fun. 1 for 4. 0. Jeff got 0. 2 for 4. I don't think anyone got 4 out of 4. Bad idea. Ask competing guests to track their own score. Very funny, David. I like that. By the way, Oh yeah, we can put up the poll. The poll is up. The poll of all the bad ideas are up. We got a good number of them in there. So please go vote on your favorite bad idea. And let's get back to our questions at hand. Oh, we got more questions that have come in. Great. This is a great question from Jonathan Waldrop. Question, and I am going to start with you, Tom, on this. What are some tips on comparing malware protection detection tools? If everyone claims to be the best, which I know they do, what's the best way for a team to determine the right tech and compare like for like tech? And here's my question. Could one malware solution work better in one environment versus another? I'd be interested.
Both great questions. Both
so
great questions.
I'm adding that to Jonathan. So what do you think, Tom?
I think that one way to compare them, you could say, well, we'll just do a bake-off. We'll do proof of concept or proof of value in our environment. And that can give you an indicator. I think one way to really compare them is if you take the red teaming perspective and you take the threat hunting perspective, meaning threat hunting, having people who are full-time security researchers with no rules that you put upon them in terms of scheduling what piece of the infrastructure, what apps, what processes to beat up on a continual basis. See how much resolution they get. How successful are they against things that those tools have already declared to be in good stead? So that smokes out a lot of rhetoric versus reality in terms of functionality. Mm-hmm. Now, that said, I was going to say these tools tend to leapfrog each other. What could be the best at a given point of time and the most effective, by the time they have a next update, they could be very comparable. So keep that in mind. But that leads right into your question that I would answer in terms of, yes, absolutely. I think different tools can run better or worse in different environments, particularly based upon what your architecture and your infrastructure looks like.
Can you go one level deeper from that? Like, why do you think one tool would work better in another environment than another?
I think that, for instance, if you are I'll call it a traditional environment, where your asset inventory and your infrastructure is largely on-prem, maybe not compared to the other side of the equation, container and microservice base. Maybe you're more serverless environment if you're more forward-looking in terms of what some of your flows look like, and therefore where malware manifests itself and what it's looking for. Some tools are better geared to that. So not mentioning any of them in particular, some are geared more toward behaviors, environments, and flows than static conditions on a host basis.
All right, and I'm going to ask one last question because you were talking about the leapfrogging, like when a new version comes out, one can leapfrog the other. Do you think it's, A, have you done it? And B, do you think it's easy to rip and replace one malware product with another? Or will you drive yourself crazy if you find one goes marginally better one year and then the other one goes marginally better the next year, constantly bouncing back and forth?
Have done it, absolutely. It's not necessarily easy. So it's probably not a good idea, going into some of our other discussion. Yeah. It's not a good idea to just decide to rip and replace because of a given leapfrog, unless you have a fundamental capability that you're lacking and the projected product or path for that isn't going to get you. That's not why you do it. It helps sometimes to tie it to understanding where your strategy and architecture is going, so that it might be the right tool for you now, but out beyond the headlights, your architecture and infrastructure is going to look different in a year or two, and you want a tool that's going to match that. And sometimes they're just purely economic and business reasons in terms of the support for that tool. But chasing the bright, shiny object of the leapfrog is going to be more trouble than it's worth if that's the only reason.
All right. Now, I'm going to throw this over to you, Aviv. Let me repeat the question from Jonathan Waldrop. He's saying, what's the best way to compare products? You have a product, I know, Vatiro. So I'm sure you're constantly put on bake-offs against others. Maybe you can talk about why sometimes you win and sometimes you may not for that reason. And it could be something that's an environment situation where it would work better in one environment versus another. Your take. What do you think?
Yeah, sure. So I think that there are a couple of factors to test when testing a malware, anti-malware product. So one is how fast it keeps up with the latest malware, obviously, or the latest threats. Now, with Vatiro, we're playing a different game. We're not trying to find the bad stuff. We sanitize and deliver known good content. So all the documents coming in, all the content that goes into the organization is always clean, as it's sanitized and even not trying to find the bad stuff. So it's completely different approach. And when you're comparing the time to detection, ratio of products, you mostly find between hours to days and weeks. Now, regarding the leapfrog thing, I think, and why it's that hard to compare between two products, I think that's a known secret that all those products, they're all coming together on VirusTotal, and they're all monitoring the others. So if VirusTotal now carries 60 plus or 70 plus engines, and one detects a new stuff, the other immediately fix their reputation database, their knowledge database, behavior database to keep up. So it's just a matter of hours, and just depends who find it first. So we decided not to participate in that. So this is one factor, and the other factor is how much this malware or threat protection product affects your productivity or your business. If it quarantine, stop content, or affect the business processes, this is a major problem. So you should be aware of that.
I want to pause you on that thought for just a second, because I want to get Tom's opinion on this. Have you seen cleaning tools cause productivity issues, just cause issues in general in your environment, Tom?
Yeah, but on a very, very decreasing basis, to be plain about it. That used to be more of a concern in times past. Some of that has to do with the ephemeral nature of things if they have to be brought up. So it's not going to kill you if a given node or process has some slowdown. And those tend to be conditional slowdowns as opposed to step function, something's down. So yes, but frankly, not a front of mind operational concern most of the time. And when we make those decisions and potential operational impacts happen, hence as part of the burden of threat and vulnerability management, frankly.
All right. My apologies, Aviv, back to you. I just wanted to get your take on that. Go ahead, Aviv.
Yeah, so our observation is some of those products affecting the user processes. It might be quarantining some files or having some false positives, or even think about the password protected documents or password protected archives. And some of the organization, they're having a policy of blocking them completely, and we see the increase of the usage of those more privacy oriented formats, and this affects the business processes. You can no longer block all password protected documents. You need to have a solutions for that. So we came up with a solution, but of course that was a result of seeing that in the market where customers saying, look, we cannot really stop receiving password protected documents or archives. So that definitely was a productivity factor for them.
And that essentially led to the creation of Atiro because of that sort of complaint in the marketplace you saw?
Yeah,
Aviv?
This is one of the reasons why we came up with a solution to cope with the password protected and encrypted documents. Yeah.
All right. All right. Let me just let everyone know you have 2 minutes to vote in the poll. Please vote in the poll. If you've not voted in the poll yet, please do that. If you have voted and for some reason want to change your vote, you can still do that, but you can't vote more than once. Those polls don't let you do that. Unlike Chicago elections. All right. They're notorious for that. They've got a history of doing that in Chicago. All right, I want to get one more question. And we got a ton of questions, by the way. Please vote up your questions if you haven't done that already. Do you think... So, okay, I'm going to throw this to you, Tom. This one comes from Akash, and he asks, or he or she, I'm sorry, my ignorance one way or the other, but Akash asks, do you think employees really read the warning for opening attachments from external sources? HR department's job is to open up resumes to hire the right talent. Does this approach work? And if it does it reduce productivity, the sort of the fear of opening attachments? Or what do you do sort of to warn people on attachments, Tom?
Yeah, my view is a tempered no to both those things. I think generally speaking, people don't pay a lot of heed to those things, much like they don't pay heed to the warning messages and no expectation of privacy type messages when they authenticate to a system. Now, that said, do I think it really impacts productivity to have them there? No. I think that they don't hurt. I think they're a reference point. In fact, the backward logic to it is sometimes as you're engaged in other awareness channels, awareness messages from the standpoint of put it in terms that are already important to them. What could happen? Security awareness is not an annual endeavor. You can actually make light of the fact that, hey, since you see all these, guess what? You see these every day. You're not paying attention to it, right? One of those things that not only is it maybe of some marginal benefit and not hurting, there's also some tangible benefit to just saying that you have those things. When certain things happen, sometimes there is a grain in there that's not practical prevention, but after the fact, it's one of those things that no one can say that they didn't know, so to speak.
By the way, I just noticed that we've got a lot of comments in our restream over on LinkedIn. If you are watching us on LinkedIn, which I see there's a bunch of people over there, come join us on Crowdcast. There's a link to do that right in the, actually, maybe not. I just realized it was cut off. Go to crowdcast.io. I'm going to put it in the chat box right here. I realized it just got cut off for some reason. Crowdcast.io/CISO series. So join us over here in Crowdcast. I just noticed that for some reason that got cut off a little bit. All right. So let's get to, oh my God, my apologies.
Hello, welcome to the Department of Yes, where no request is ever rejected.
We have some truly awful ideas that have come in right now. Whoops, put the poll back up. The poll just disappeared. Aaron, can you put the poll back up? I just tried to click on it and it disappeared. There it is. Thank you very much, Aaron. So there's some just awful, awful bad ideas here. And I'm going to tell you the two ones. And actually, I already know who did it because Aaron actually looked up. So I already know who sent these in. So this one comes in from Rich Mason. Rich, thank you for this horrible idea. And remember, this game is Department of Yes. So you have to actually tell me why you want to deploy this incredibly stupid idea. And I'm going to start with you, Tom, on this. And again, can't be facetious. You got to tell me why you want to do this. Rich wants to know because he really wants to do this stupid idea. Convert ransomware to a subscription service so you can budget a lower monthly fee. Why do you want to do this?
Convert ransomware so I can budget a lower.
By the way, I already know a good idea here. By the way, you work in finance. There's a good answer to this one.
I suppose if you tried to, amortize sunken costs in dealing with malware, that might actually make some sense. So why would I want to commoditize it in that sense? I suppose simply for predictability's sake in amortizing my flows and dealing with it to begin with. Assume the bad so I can at least predict the bad, right? Dial off the ebb and flow.
Marketplace hates uncertainty. Even if it's negative, at least it's certainty. All right. Aviv, why do you want to do this?
So probably I would like to have a subscription of the ransomware because I don't want to have their bugs. So if they can fix the bugs, so they can always decrypt my file when I need to pay them. So I'll probably want to have a service where they're delivering high quality software continuously.
Hooray! I don't know if they're going to do that for you, though. Decrypt that for you. All right. Thank you very much. By the way, Rich, stay on because we're going to want you on camera in about 7-10 minutes to defend why your bad idea is worse. Okay, here's the second one. And this, hold on, where was it? Oh, here we go. This one comes from AJ. AJ, also, we're going to want you. All right, I'll start with you, Aviv, on this one. Give everyone local admin access so they can install their tools without bothering the internal systems. Why do you want to do this?
I know that most of the developers, they're always asking for local admin accounts, and it might be speeding up actually application development in some organizations. So let them run.
Let them run. Business. I didn't feel as good, as strong about that one. Tom, why do you want to do this one?
You could treat it as bait in your trusted insider program. See what goofy things people are going to do, abusing their local admin to tune your tools against it. Sneak out those things.
I like that. In fact, you get the official.
We've got a winner.
Congratulations there, Tom. Good job on both. And by the way, kudos on both AJ and Rich. Are they still with us? Please tell me in the back channel, Aaron. We're going to want both of you. Oh, AJ, I see you just chatted. And hold on, Rich, is he still with us? I hope he is. We want both of them to come on. They're both, they are both there. Great. Awesome. So they'll be joining us in just about 6 minutes as well. All right. Let's get back to the questions. And a ton of questions have come in. Okay, here we go. We have a John Doe. I don't know if that's your real name. Suppose my phone has malware and none of the antivirus tools can scan it. How do I detect and remove it in the best possible way? I'll start with you, Aviv. Got an answer for this one?
Yeah, so I think if you have a malware on your phone and you know it, that's first significant step because
That's a
most of
win.
the
Yes.
phone on, yeah, that's a win.
Yeah.
Now, I would say that if you know it, that should be relatively easy these days to wipe and restore with the backups that usually most of the phone owners has, as opposed to desktops. So I would go for the aggressive solution. Although from my experience, I haven't seen a lot of malware that are actually good at abusing phones, except for just sending spam and stuff like that.
All right. What about you, Tom? How would you deal with this? This is, again, John Doe, if that's your real name. It's question.
I'd agree with that mindset. I mean, it's kind of back to the idea of, and you, among other people, know I hate the term zero trust, not the concept, but make it a who cares situation to the degree that you can. I agree with you that, hey, if you know that you've got a compromised phone or a piece of malware on your phone, you're steps ahead of 99% of the folks out there. But if you're at that stage, just make it to the point where your phone can be an ephemeral thing and start a clean, wipe it and reimage it.
Maybe you may not need to wipe and restart. Here's a good question that came from Jonathan Waldrop again. And this is, I'm sure, an issue that every company deals with. Any tips on detecting software supply chain related malware attacks? Viv, any suggestion here on this? Because it's not my environment. It's coming in from somebody else. What's your advice?
Yeah, so this is a tough one. I mean, we all experience the nation-sponsored kind of attack, which is fairly hard to stop, to be honest. But I would probably make sure that the software updates are signed and coming from a legit source, and making sure that no one really tempered them along the way. That's probably one of the best things that you can probably do, assuming that you can trust the vendor.
I've changed my background because my colors were getting a little weird. What about you, Tom? Any advice on dealing with malware that would come in the supply chain? I mean, this is such a tough one.
It is a tough one. And if you think about worst cases there, it's very
probably
difficult.
your number one fears.
Definitely in the top 2 or 3. And I think that, while, not a silver bullet approach, I don't want to imply that, we just do this all the time and it works perfectly well. Yeah, you can look at your vendor due diligence and how they do everything from secrets management to their, active threat hunting within their supply chain, which is upstream of you. I think that the challenge is, how do we as a community get better at what I mentioned before in terms of just looking for those behaviors, looking for not binaries or hashes of what you think malware looks like, but what is unusual behavior outside of the baseline for that given service tool, et cetera, that component is delivering.
By the way, if you want to get a 10% tip in, get it in now, because we're going to be putting up the poll in about a minute and a half. Hey, Mason asked a good little question, and I don't know if there's a difference here, but Mason asks, what is the difference between a Trojan horse and a backdoor? I think I know the difference there. How would you define that, Aviv? The difference between a Trojan horse and a backdoor?
Yeah, I would. It's very similar, but I would think that the backdoor was actually built by someone who was privileged enough to do that. I mean, he was someone that was in the system, involved in the design, so he built that backdoor, as opposed to a Trojan horse, that someone from the outside really sneaks that out from outside. I mean, to the organization or to the system, without being involved in the design.
I think that's a good definition. Would you define it that way, Tom, too?
Yeah, more or less. I'd say the Trojan horse is let me in. I'm good. I'm supposed to be here. Or the back door is kind of a clandestine, intended to be there for ostensibly for positive use. But again, might be one of those distinctions without a difference things in terms of what we want to do about it. But yes, I generally agree.
It still has the same ugly, nasty effect. All right, I think it's time to bring in both Rich and AJ to have them compete as to who has the dumbest idea, the worst idea here. So please, let's if we can invite both of them on, and also please get the 10% poll up as well, Aaron, if you could. Please do all 3. So 2 invites and get a poll up as well. Our poll is up, and we got a good number of 10% tips. So, by the way, one of the 10% better tips is ask Valerie to step in and take over the CISO position. So, curse words, don't effing open this. Okay. Some of these, I don't know if they fall under the 10% better tips, people. I think some of you are labeling these incorrectly. I'm questioning. Anyways, please vote in the 10% poll, and I have the invited. I'm sorry. While we're waiting for them to come on, again, AJ and also Rich, please come on. Please accept. Oh, we've accepted one right here. There's AJ, and hopefully Rich is coming. They're both accepting and connecting. Now, AJ, if I remember, yours was the give everyone local admin access so they can install their tools without bothering internal systems. And Rich's is convert ransomware to a subscription service so you can budget a lower monthly fee. And Rich will be here with a second. Where are you based, by the way, AJ? Where are you?
Calgary, Alberta, Canada.
In Alberta. Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, welcome.
Yeah.
We appreciate you.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Just looking up stats on Alberta yesterday. Here's a little tip I just learned. Your population is quite large, 1.3 million in Alberta.
Yeah.
In Calgary, I'm sorry, specifically in Calgary.
Yeah, it's starting to be a big city. It's a big city that'll be nice when it's finished. We have 2 seasons here, winter and road construction.
Good one.
So that's really about it.
Is that a local joke everybody knows?
Yeah, everybody's familiar with that.
All right, are we getting any success with Rich? I'm checking our back channel right now. Are we any success? What's happening with Rich? He's stuck. All right. Hold tight. We're going to go to another question while Rich gets unstuck. Another question from Akash. What about malware coming in through steganography, which is like where it can be hidden within an image or another file? Does this become a big issue for you, Tom, or is it like a non-issue? What do you think?
I don't know that it's a non-issue, but I wouldn't say that it's forefront of mind in terms of highly pointed concerns, especially if you're looking at the behaviors or changes to binaries as opposed to how it got there. Now, in terms of if you go left to right in the framework, you get to the detect stage. It can be less straightforward in some cases, and it does go back to Aviv's question in some cases of, look, how have we dealt with that in the past? We've dealt with it in the past in a relatively blunt way in terms of blocking certain paths, blocking unnecessary images, blocking some vessels that could happen within, and in particular in some business flows, a more fine-grained approach along the lines of what Aviv was talking about, or the future there. So I think that it depends upon what kind of business you're in. It depends upon which workflow and which piece of the business you're in. How important is that? For some folks, I can take the sledgehammer approach. For some folks, the scalpel approach that Aviv is correctly espousing is the way to go, and the tools are getting better there.
All right, let me hold the thing. Hey, AJ, we're going to drop you for just a second right here and to see if we can get Rich back on again. Rich, can you get on to another tool? Because his mobile app, for some reason, doesn't let him use video, which I don't quite understand. But if he can get onto a different device, we would love to get you back on. So, Aaron, work with Rich on that. And hopefully we can get it. AJ wins by default. No, Rich, we want you on. We want you competing. Hey, I'm just going to quickly ask you, steganography,
so
is that an issue at all?
I do want to comment.
No? It is? So how are you seeing this problem manifest itself, Aviv?
So actually what we see is that malware is trying to inject itself through images, through media files, with something that we haven't seen 5 or 10 years ago, because it tried to hide from a legitimate or traditional detection systems. One of the things that we've done, we understood that we don't want to block images where, Tom, this is one of the suggestions. We know that some organizations are doing some fine-grained policy or blocking some file types on a different routes. But we understood that we want to allow the business to flow. So we implemented our technology, which is called the CDR. This is content disarmament reconstruction, especially for images or for images as well. So we know how to reconstruct the image. And if there is something hidden in it, any binary code, any code that might be malicious, is actually being removed while the image is being delivered successfully. So this is one of the techniques that we detected. We know that the bad guys are using more and more in order to evade the traditional detection systems, and so that's one of the things that we built a solution for.
All right. Matthew Bybee asked this question, and I'm going to say the obvious answer from Aviv to this is going to be his product, Votiro. But he did ask this question, which I think is interesting. So I'm going to throw it to you, Tom. If you had enough budget for just one solution, what would it be, or where would you deploy it? You only can do one. What's it going to do, or what's going to give you the most impact, you think?
Probably one that doesn't exist yet, but if I had to pick one, it would be better asset inventory that was really telling me what's the asset inventory and CMDB down at that microservices level, because it's foundational to doing a lot of other things.
Okay, that's good. And I would assume the answer for you, Aviv, would be Votiro.
Yes, obviously. I think that if I would pick one, that would be it, for sure.
Of course. He's still second. Unfortunately, we're going to have to bail on the what's worse idea, contenders falling off. Unfortunately, Rich is getting technical issues, sadly. But yeah, it's an unfortunate. He's stuck. So my apologies to AJ, but great, horrific ideas to both of you. I'll just ask the audience because, wait, Valerie's being nominated to come in and defend Rich? All right. Let's say that. Valerie, if you're willing to come in and defend Rich's bad idea, we'd love to have you on. Invite Valerie, invite AJ. We'll have them compete against each other. And then I think we can, we'll have about 10 minutes for the show. Let me go to my questions. Oh, we were talking about this. This is like the cat and mouse game, Tom, because you were talking about like at each version, it's kind of a cat and mouse game with just the vendors. Forget the malware people. But like one vendor's products here, then this one leapfrogs, then they keep leapfrogging, and you can't keep switching back and forth. It'll give you a migraine if you do something like that. But what about obviously the cat and mouse game that malware protection is with the people who are attacking? I mean, is there any way to get ahead of this, or is this just a cycle we're going to be in forever? What do you think, Tom?
It's a cycle we're probably in forever to one degree or another. It's an, if not escalating, at least constantly changing cat and mouse game. So what can you do to curtail the never-ending cycle, or at least not fall behind? There's blocking and tackling stuff that we've talked about here, including enforcing your pipeline guardrails and doing everything you can to at least understand what's in your supply chain. All well and good. But the soundbite, so to speak, if there's one takeaway, let your people, meaning the people in those roles that you depend on in this space, your tier 3 CSOC operators, your threat hunters, your forensic detectives inside, if in fact they're part of your program, let them be cats. Don't force them to work on a program or a schedule that presupposes what they're going to find and therefore where they should look. Let them, at least a significant portion of them for a significant portion of their time, be as unfettered as the adversaries are to try to find where you could be vulnerable.
All right. We are getting AJ back on and also Gianna. Give me a quick answer as we're waiting for Gianna, Aviv, for the cat and mouse game. Are we in this cycle forever, or can we get ahead of it?
Yeah, so I think that's all the answer regarding the product parts. I think that for the malware, there are techniques that are more proactive, that allowing the safe stuff into the organization, allowing for legitimate users and process to run, and while keeping all the unknown or the other stuff that we're not sure about out. That would reduce significantly the effort in participating in that cat and mouse game.
All right, so we're trying to get Gianna on right there. Invite Matthew. All right, invite Matthew. He says he'll do it. All right, we'll get Matthew Bybee on to do this. We've had to go for so many seconds. We're down to a fourth. There must be a tech issue. We had Gianna earlier in our green room just moments ago, so we know she can get on. I don't know.
Say, is there like a finite amount of users you can have on this? Or?
Oh, you know what it is? We may be having a limit. Andrew and Aaron, are you both on the producer account? Because we're at 6 people, if that's the case. One of you need to drop. And go back and invite Rich. That's the problem. One of you drop and invite Rich. I think that's the problem since both of you are on the count. For those of you who don't know, Crowdcast has a limit of 6 people, and we have the producer uses one of those spots. So I think that's the issue of why he hasn't come on. All right. Maybe you got a question on this. We're going to get to the what's worse scenario. But AJ, what's your top concern on the malware issue?
Well, we've talked a lot about why malware is a problem, and it's because there's an enormous amount of places for it to hide, right? Mm-hmm. There's a ton of the usual things that we would expect in the industry, or in the business, inside the business that we're working with. There's also a lot of stuff that we just can't really pinpoint as to whether or not it's good, bad, or ugly, right? We don't really have a lot of that baseline capability or those frames of reference. And you think about it from a monitoring tool standpoint, something that is on the host, running at a preset interval, collecting metrics and sending them somewhere is really at its core no different than an information stealing malware that is doing the same thing, just a lot more, overtly. So when you really get down to it, malware has a ton of opportunities to hide in our immediate industry space, and finding all of those and then making sure we have reliable detections and everything else is really quite difficult. I mean, computers are easy to fool. When they know exactly what they're looking for, they work just wonderfully. But there's a lot of opportunities where the attackers can just simply leverage those blind spots.
All right, we're going to try to bring on Matthew. We don't know what the issue is or why people are having a hard time coming on. I thought it was because both of my producers are on the same account, and we've maxed out at 6 at the same time. So 2 producers. I don't know. We're going to have to test and find this out. But we will get your second on in just a second. We have only 9 minutes left in the show right now. Let me just see. We have tons of questions that came in today, which I think are spectacular. And I think I've hit all the ones that are most relevant to our topic right here. And some of these we've actually answered. Mason asks this question. Does the type of malware, bots, spyware, rootkits, worms, etc., matter in terms of urgency to contain or risk level, Tom? Take yourself off of mute.
Yeah, it matters, but to a degree, you can't necessarily assume unless there are threat indicators or intelligence to tell you it might already be attributed with a given objective, that that's the objective at hand. So to a degree, you have to deal with it with the same type of alacrity based upon the what ifs, not the beliefs of what it was intended for. Keep in mind, at least in my view, I know many disagree with me, given behaviors, whether it be ransomware, whether it be data destruction, whether it be disruption, etc., are things that attackers do once successful with malware. It's not necessarily the same as how the malware was constructed itself. So the short answer to your question is, yeah, it matters, but at that initial stage, including reverse engineering, if you have the capacity to do so, you can't assume that it's what you think it is.
All right. We now have our competitors on. Matthew Bybee, thank you so much for joining us as well. And I'm going to go back up to, you were playing the part of Rich Mason here, and his bad idea was convert ransomware to a subscription service so you can budget a lower monthly fee. Now, you're supposed to argue that your idea is far worse than AJ's idea, which is give everyone local admin access so they can install their tools without bothering internal systems. So I will let you argue first as to why your idea is far worse than AJ's, and AJ vice versa. You have a turn to argue back, and it will be up to Aviv, and also Tom to determine truly who has the worst idea. And Matthew, what happened to you? I don't need these more tech issues. Come back to us. Refresh your screen if you can hear me. Can he hear me? God willing, he can. I hope he can. We lost him. Why? All right, we're gonna unfortunately we're gonna have to go to summarizing the show. AJ, I'm gonna apologize. No, wait, he's back. Oh. All right, Matthew, quick, argue your point.
So this is the malware as a subscription?
Yes, malware as a subscription. Why is your idea worse than AJ's with giving admin access?
Oh boy, I'm not gonna do this justice probably.
Come on, you have to. You're playing for Rich here. He's not gonna be happy if you blow this one. Well, we can't hear you.
Oh.
I think we got to let this go. AJ, please don't be insulted. We're going to drop Matt. Please drop Matthew. Please drop AJ. We appreciate you coming on. We're going to figure out these tech issues the next time. But let's get to quickly. We're going to summarize our event today. By the way, if you have not clicked on the link at the bottom of the screen, please click the link on the bottom of the screen now, because it's going to change in just a couple of minutes. All right. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to get, when I'm done with this, from you, Tom, and from you, Aviv, I do want your last thoughts on our topic today. So Our next Friday we do this, not next Friday, but the Friday afterwards, which is June 3rd. We're going to be doing Hacking the Attack Surface, an hour of critical thinking about losing top-down control of data and users. Remember, if you register by 5/31/2022, I said 5:30, but by then you're automatically entered in a raffle to win a CISO Series jacket. So why not just register right now? Why not? Just do it. Click that link because right now, go ahead. I want to thank Votiro for sponsoring this very episode. In fact, Votiro is also on the very first episode of our brand new show, Capture the CISO. Please listen to it. Listen to who wins it, and also join us on June 17th when we do our live final show of Capture the CISO as well. So listen to our new show. Just go to CISOseries.com and you'll see the new icon for Capture the CISO. You can listen to it or subscribe to it via your favorite podcast app. Now, in 90 minutes from now, Cybersecurity Headlines Week in Review, we're going to have Jarek Beeson, the CISO of Commercial Bank at Capital One, will be our guest, discussing all the news from this week on hybrid news. Okay, stick around for our meetup. Click that link at the yes, it's been changed. Thank you very much, Aaron, for doing that. Go ahead, click on that now. You can click on it now. We're going to have our meetup portion where we just smooth for 30 minutes, meet your fellow people. Tom, Aviv, are you going to be able to join us for that 30 minutes right afterwards? Yes? Yes, Tom will be there. Aviv will be there as well. And I believe both of you are hiring. Are you both hiring? Yes? Tom is, I know. Aviv is hiring. So would you like to work for one of these talented gentlemen with these talented organizations? You want to talk to them as well. All right. Tell your friends to join us. We do this most Fridays at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. And if you're interested in sponsoring, just email me at david@cisoseries.com. All right. Now we have come to, let me close this out. We've come to the end of our show, which we have just a few minutes. I'm going to let you, Aviv. Aviv, final thoughts on our topic. If you have a pitch to our audience about Votiro or how they can follow up with you, please let them know now.
Perfect. So just in 60 seconds, so Votiro is a technology and a product that allows organization to get all the information, all the document, all the content into their systems while securing the incoming flow without compromising not security nor productivity. The way we do that, as we talked about malware, there is the traditional ways of the hackers to go in. Most of them are leveraging the documents, files, and content, which are weaponized. We found a different way to cope with that. We're not trying to find the bad stuff. We know what is the good stuff. By sanitizing the documents, we're delivering only the known good content in. We're doing that as an API, so we can integrate with almost any incoming flow of content. We're doing that for cloud application. We can do that for data lakes, for S3 bucket, for email, for web browsing. In fact, every part that is involved with content and documents today, which is essentially everything. We're doing that for medium-sized and large enterprise, but also for small customers. This can be hosted on the cloud or on-prem. And of course, we would love to demonstrate how we improving the productivity and improving the security at the same time, which I know this is a challenge. I would love to demonstrate that to you. And of course, you can connect with the logging to www.votiro.com and following us on the LinkedIn and of course on Twitter. 60 seconds.
Okay, well, that's fine. And in fact, let me also mention that if you want to actually see a demo video of Votiro, it's on our site on Capture the CISO. So go check that out. Again, go to CISOseries.com, click Capture the CISO, and just actually go to the first episode. And the video is right there in that first episode as well. And you can actually hear the show, which we are super, super proud of. It came out so darn well. All right, Tom, final thoughts.
So keep in mind, this is a team sport. That's the final thought. So in terms of prevent and detect and respond, that's all great stuff, which never goes away. And the takeaway in terms of how to practice that team sport, this is going to sound really Luddite-ish and boring, but it's not. Do your situational malware recovery or incident response tabletop exercises and not just on a technical basis. You know, the idea of who are you delivering for with your technology and what do they need to protect and get back sooner rather than others. Smoking out your plan when you think it's going to work and when it's not going to work, critically important, and most people don't do it enough. And that's not just a technical person exercise. That's a who are you delivering for exercise.
Excellent. All right, we have 20 seconds left. I want to quickly say that there were 2 comments about start by knowing what all your assets are, including IoT devices. Please quickly tell us who that is. And also, let's go to the fundamentals, really inventory your stuff and stay on that. Doing this well lets you know when something is wrong. Both were voted up high. Both had spoke to inventory asset management, which, Tom, you are very, very bullish on as well. So those are very, very popular topics. All right. That's it, everybody. Thank you, Aviv. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Votiro. Everybody, click the link at the bottom of the screen and join us over in the chat area, which is Toucan. It's a lot of fun, and we're going to all have a fun conversation there. Bye, everybody.